Welcome back, everyone, to Not Just Any Other Story. Anita Capri here. I am very pleased today to finally, and I say finally with emphasis, have my niece Remy here for this particular part of the story. And Shauna, thank you so much for being here, ladies.
No problem.
We are actually continuing with the story, The Sun Will Rise. For this compilation, which is also called The Sun Will Rise. And we did read part of the story, part one of the story, and wanted to continue because it's it's a longer story. It's not really a short story. It's kind of almost like a novella, but not quite as long as a novella. It's a long, short story. Anyway, so we're going to continue on with that story. So I'm going to start reading and then we'll take turns. Usual thing, and hopefully you like it. All right, so we left off when Esther actually had her first conversation with her online person who actually swiped right or something. She didn't know what she was doing. That would be something I would probably do. She didn't realize she was swiping to show interest, and this person, the cat guy, she had a little tiny conversation with him. So going from there.
Catman ball.
Cat. Okay, here we go. When Esther had finished speaking to her sister, offering her encouragement and the prospect that online learning was only temporary, she took a long hot bath and only woke up when the less than lukewarm water had become somewhat uncomfortable. For the first time in a while, she slept through the night and dreaded that the following day would be her last day shift for a couple of weeks. It was hard to switch shift times as it messed up her sleeping and eating regimes. She also knew that it meant that her communication with Cat Guy would be limited, since she would have to sleep a good part of the day and then leave for work at 6 for her 7 o'clock shift. For the next couple of weeks, there were attempts at conversations, but either she was sleeping or working when he messaged, or he was doing the same when she had time off. There was one day, though, in the following week when they were finally able to have a conversation while she was on her break. They texted each other the whole time, and through the conversation she had learned that he was indeed a true cat guy. His cat was named Darth because it was jet black and because he was a Star Wars fan. Consequently, he was considering getting another one to keep Darth company and would name that one Vader. Esther loved this quirky revelation and began to share bits of information about her own personal life, starting with her own cats and ending off with her job and siblings, never giving away too many details, especially exactly where it was that she lived, worked, or hung out. There had not been any mention on both sides to meet in person, and this was to Esther's relief because, though she had really started to take a liking to Bob, the cat guy, she was still cautious and needed more time to get to know him. But she had made one important step, and that was to have a real conversation on the phone rather than texting with him. After the first phone call, she admitted to herself that she liked his voice. It was a calm voice, not too deep and not too high, but just right, and she would laugh. By the same token, Bob truly appreciated her cool sarcasm and sense of humor, and she sometimes took him by surprise when she would say something in the most serious tone, but be totally joking. It all seemed to be going quite well, but then she started to wonder when she hadn't heard from him for a few days, despite leaving a couple of messages for him on his phone. Before she could start regretting having swiped right in the first place, Bob messaged her. "Sorry haven't been in touch, have been so under the weather and have been in bed for days with such a bad cough." "Oh, I'm so sorry. I hope you don't have COVID," Esther replied. "No, I doubt it. Just a bad cold." They continued texting back and forth for a few minutes, but Esther had to cut the conversation short. She was already slightly late to go to Desiree's place for a girls' night with those few friends who were part of her tight bubble. Before hopping onto the subway, she looked again at her work schedule. This was the first of her free nights, her night shifts having ended a couple of days earlier. She was tempted to text Bob while she sat on the subway, but it was only a few stops until she had to get off, so she kept her phone tucked in her pocket and closed her eyes for a moment, wondering what he looked like and if he would be her type. Not that she had a type. She had gone out with a few men over the last couple of years, all from different backgrounds and with different looks, and she couldn't say that she found one more appealing over the other. What she could say, though, was that none seemed to impress her too much. Either they talked too much or demanded too much or just didn't really get her. All Esther really wanted was a guy who was patient enough to get her because she just wasn't an open book. not like her friends, especially Desiree. Perhaps this guy, Bob, got her. She couldn't really tell yet. It was too soon, she decided, and with that thought she arrived at her stop and put any assumptions about this new suitor in that small back compartment of her mind. She was glad for the company of Desiree, Desiree's sister Faith, and their other friend Remy. It was fun to laugh at the funny stories they each shared about the latest happenings in their lives while they devoured $100 worth of sushi. Esther kept her recount of Bob brief and simply stated that they were just texting a little, so she didn't really know too much about him yet. Though Desiree knew that it was somewhat more than Esther's description, she did not say anything, to Esther's relief. Another few days passed before she heard from Bob again, but the message was brief and seemed a little distant. It was a one-sentence update that things were really busy and he didn't have much time to chat. Thinking about this a few days later as she sat in the hospital parking lot, she wondered whether this would go anywhere. At least she could feel relieved that if it didn't, she had not gotten too involved, having approached the whole situation with caution. She heard her mother's words in her head whenever she gave Esther advice about any new challenge. Slow and steady, she would say, everything in good time. Esther never forgot this, and she was sure that she owed her patience and her ability to be sensible about things to her mother. Sound familiar? Oh, sorry. She waited a few extra minutes before heading through the staff entrance, psyching herself up for another workday. She had a strange feeling about today, though. It wasn't a bad feeling, just something that made her feel uneasy, and she couldn't explain why. Finally, she made the familiar trek through security and down to the RT lounge to drop off her things and get the updates about the patients before starting her shift. Her first patient was the most serious. His name was Pedro, and he had just been admitted hours earlier. Diagnosed with a fairly severe case of COVID, he was put on high oxygen, so she had to chart his vitals every 4 hours. His vent setting was set at high pressure, but she was glad that over the course of her shift, his vitals had remained steady. She always worried that when the patient required intubation, proning could become necessary. She hated proning, where patients were put onto their stomachs to help blood flow to the lungs. It was very hard on the patients, somewhat traumatizing actually, and there was always a chance that the patient could die if they reached this stage of their illness. Before ending her shift, she checked on Pedro once more. He was conscious when she came to his bedside, and his eyes seemed to be smiling at her. She had finished noting his levels on her chart, and when Esther smiled at him, she couldn't help but notice how nice his eyes were. They were warm eyes, the kind that made you feel comfortable right away. She left the room thinking about this and bumped into Dr. Charbot on her way out. "Whoa, careful there, Esther," he said, amused by her startled expression. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Charbot," she managed to apologize as she picked up the pen she had dropped. "How's he doing?" he asked, changing the subject and focusing on the patient he had come to check on. Pretty good. No change since I arrived. Seems in good spirits." "Good," the doctor replied, with an approving nod. "Just ending your shift?" "Yep," she answered. "Gotta get home to my kitties." "Right," he smiled, and before entering the room he said, "Well, have a great day and keep your head up," literally. Esther laughed at his attempt to make a joke out of the fact that she had probably been looking down when she had bumped into him. Leave it to Dr. Charbot to lighten the mood, as always. When Esther arrived home, she fed the cats and heated up a frozen bagel before settling in on her favorite velvet chair. She wanted to give Bob a call, but texted him instead. "Hi, you there?" When there was no response, she decided to watch television and was fast asleep before she had reached the conclusion of the movie that was on. Waking a few hours later, she made her way to the bedroom and set her alarm for 5:30 a.m. Hopefully by tomorrow, she thought, he will have seen my message. The next morning, having had no response still from Bob, she decided to give it one more shot. "Just heading out to the hospital for work," she wrote. "Hope you had a good night's sleep. Maybe we can connect tonight sometime. I finish at 7. But Bob didn't respond that day or the day after, and Esther began to wonder if he were ghosting her or if something had happened to him. It made her feel down and not herself as she did her rounds at work and repeated the routine of eating, sleeping, playing with Itty and Biggie, and watching TV or reading to fill the space between work and home. She had tried calling him and left a message on his voicemail saying she hoped he was well over his cold and that he was okay. She tried not to sound worried or disappointed at not having heard from him, but then she decided she wasn't going to care. At this point, she thought, regardless of the situation, he should at least let me know that he's okay, or not interested in continuing our communications. And this is exactly what she said to Desiree a few days later when she called her at work. Desiree agreed wholeheartedly and even suggested that Esther take a look at the message that came in from other guys on the dating app. You never know, Larissa, Desiree joked. There could be someone even nicer or more suited to you. I'm going to stop there.
Okay.
So, was I pretty, so just to give the audience or the listeners context, a lot of this story is actually based on Remy, because Remy became an RT, a respiratory therapist, just when COVID really hit.
Yeah, about a year before.
Yeah. And so you were pretty fresh still into the job. And so I wanted to get your take on like how accurate the description was of COVID patients and proning and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was pretty accurate.
I probably asked you about it before, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the 4-hour rounding and the vent settings and proning. Yeah. Those are nice memories, that's for sure.
Thinking back with it, have that experience, Remy?
Yeah. Proning, we're doing it on a daily basis to multiple patients at a shift. Yeah.
Wow.
That was not good. Yeah. So I love how the one part about Bob saying, oh, I don't think it's COVID. In the middle. That's not from the video. In the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's definitely COVID.
Yeah.
Everyone had COVID back then.
Yeah. I feel like even now, though, like I feel like it's almost like it's this distant memory, and it's still around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, we still have patients in our ICU right now that are COVID positive, and they might have something underlying now, whereas before it was more just even healthy people that were still so sick and not doing well. Now it's a little bit of, okay, they're COVID, they're in ICU, so they're very sick, but they have something else that had been going on other than the COVID. So it's a little bit more back to normal in terms of that. And it's not their main reason that they'd be in the ICU other than the fact that, they have COVID and that's contributing to the issues. But they have something else, like they have underlying asthma or something.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Versus before, it was crazy. It was like you don't healthy people.
But now when somebody's sick, you don't hear, I think I have COVID. Whereas now it's like, you don't think about it.
It's just
it's a cold. Yeah. It's a cold.
It's the flu, basically.
The flu.
Yeah. I'm sick. It'll be over in 2 days.
So do you think she hasn't heard from Bob because he's really sick?
I think... Can I say what I think?
Yeah.
I think he's Pedro.
That's what I thought when I first heard the beginning. Okay. Or the doctor, but he said he's married with kids.
Yeah.
Not him.
But that would be a sneaky little plot twist in the story.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. But I don't know why he's just convenient that Pedro entered the hospital.
Yes, isn't it? At the same time.
He's very sick.
Yeah,
Bob.
Or he's just very sick and he's also in the ICU, but she doesn't know who he is because it's just a picture of a cat. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's not using her real name.
That's true.
That's right. So, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't think he's ghosting her?
I feel like a lot of people do.
Yeah, I don't. Or I did. Sorry.
Yeah, I use your real name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't.
No.
Yeah, I probably do cat girl.
That's like back in the day. It's like cat girl 152.
Yeah, I know. I
like dinging Mr. Frozen.
Then what happened to us? You actually want to meet them.
Yeah. This is my real name.
You have to be like real. Like
after
like, why did you lie about your name?
Nothing. I tell you the guy that lied about his age once.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or his name. Sorry.
Yeah.
He used his middle name.
And that's okay.
I just called him this name for so long, and we met up a few times. And then he's like, by the way, my name's actually whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I was like, then why did you tell me your name? Like, what is the reason?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what was the truth?
He said because he had owned a business that he didn't like. If
he didn't want to connect it.
Yeah. But it was out in like he was from like Alberta. He was just visiting for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was a long. And what's the date? Okay.
No, I think it was. Yeah, I don't know. He was just bored and just wanted to like meet people because he was like there for work for a couple.
Got it.
But I think the Catman thing is funny because we all, I feel like, have nicknames for like
Yeah.
everybody that we meet online.
Yeah,
Like Remy's husband was Fireman.
Yeah.
that's right.
And then like,
They're so
yeah,
That's right.
with my friends, we've had like,
That's right.
we've had like English boy or Irish boy.
Really?
Or yeah, like Hinge boy,
Yes.
Handle boy.
yeah.
Or like they just get nicknames based off of.
This is why I love having younger people with me, because I learned so much about like the dating world and the
Because it's not serious enough to give them a
Yes.
real,
right.
to give them a real.
I agree.
So
Like, and everyone was asking me about him, like, back in the day. And I
Yeah.
remember being like, no, we don't get to know until.
yeah, right.
Until I
remember that.
forever ready to meet him.
Yeah.
And for it to become an actual
Yeah.
thing. And no one gets to be invested.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Too invested in.
Yeah.
It's a way of staying like detached a little bit,
Yeah.
just in case it doesn't work out. They have to
Right.
tell everybody that it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows if you're on a date.
Yeah.
And then you have to explain to everyone that it didn't go well. Right? So it's like, let's just keep their names out of it.
I agree.
They get nicknames.
Yeah.
At least Fireman got to turn into Alex.
There you go.
Yes.
There you
Yes,
go.
yes.
That's a whole other story. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to ask Remy to read, and then we'll talk a little bit more. We'll stop again and talk a little bit more. 'Cause it's such a long story. Okay, here we go.
And this is exactly what she said to Desiree a few days later when she called her at work. Desiree agreed wholeheartedly and even suggested that Esther take a look at the messages that came in from other guys on the dating app. You never know, Larissa, Desiree joked. There could be someone even nicer or more suited to you. Ugh, please, Esther replied, an exasperated sigh escaping her. It's not like we have been dating or anything. It's just been texts and a couple of phone calls. He's not a boyfriend. I mean, he had potential, but well, I guess that's that. There was a pause before Desiree could counter Esther's nonchalant way of assessing the situation. Well, she finally answered, you still have me, darling girl. Esther couldn't help but smile and suggest that once she had a few days break that they have a Netflix binge watching session with takeout, the obvious choice when most eat-in restaurants were still closed. Desiree agreed, and before ending the conversation, Esther made one last suggestion that maybe Desiree find a boyfriend herself, to which she replied, are you kidding? I don't have time for that. Unbelievable, Esther said to herself as she hung up the phone and returned her lunch bag to the knapsack, which hung in her locker. She had had a busy day so far and had noticed that when she arrived at work that morning, that Pedro was no longer on her list. She wondered if he was any worse or any better. When she saw her colleague Dominic, she asked about Pedro and if he knew what had happened to him. Oh yeah, that guy, her colleague Dominic was saying. They put him on high-flow machine yesterday and then he was able to breathe on his own. I believe they moved him to another floor. Esther was thrilled. She had hoped that the man with the nice eyes would be okay and decided she would go by and see him on her next break, which is exactly what she did. When he saw her peek into the room, he smiled and she knew she had to go in to say hello. I'm so happy to see you are doing better, she said. Yes, so much better, he replied. Esther noticed right away that he was short of breath. Well, just take it easy and don't talk too much, she advised him. I haven't talked for days, he continued, so this is a nice break from my boredom. Esther smiled. Well, just thought I would check in on you since you weren't in the room where I last saw you. Thanks, he said. That was so nice of you. Esther looked at his vitals on his chart, even though he was no longer one of her patients. There was a slight pause as she returned the clipboard on the hook at the end of the bed. Well, I guess I'll get back to work, she announced as she began to make her way out of the room. Take it easy, okay? Of course, he said, not grinning at her. Have a great day, Larissa. It took her a moment to realize that he had used her middle name, and she stopped short just as she reached the door to leave the room. Then she rolled around to look at him, her eyes wide with shock. Before she could ask him how it was that he was calling her Larissa, an alarm went off, and over the intercom, a code pink. Knowing that this warning meant that a young child or baby could be in cardiac or respiratory arrest, she had no time to think about it and left abruptly to return to her floor. When she arrived, it turned out that Dominic, the other RT on her shift, was already there in the COVID unit and working with the medical team trying to revive a young child who had suddenly stopped breathing. Esther was secretly glad she hadn't been the first one there, but went into action once she arrived. She asked Dominic if he was managing the airway successfully. Esther learned that the child was 5 years old and was advised which resuscitation cart to access according to the child's size. She helped secure the tube while Dominic continued to ventilate the patient. She then started to prepare the tube for intubation. Once it was confirmed that there was air entry into both lungs and that essentially intubation had been successful, Esther assisted the nurse with various tasks and then finally left to resume her regular duties. She went about her work for the next hour or so, her whole body tense with the stress of treating a child in distress. She had seen a number of children with COVID, many who had contracted it in daycares or schools, but none yet who had come through the ICU in such serious condition. When she had a moment to take a break, she went down to the lounge to sit down and decompress, only to be reminded about Pedro and the fact that he knew her secret name, Larissa, the one she had used on the dating app. At the thought of this, she could only assume that Pedro saw her picture on the app. Or could he be Bob, the cat guy? Would he use an alias? She had done so herself, so it was definitely a possibility. She decided that she would have to find out whether it was unprofessional or not. She would go and see Pedro after her shift was done and simply ask him why he had called her by that name, even though the name on her badge was Esther. Heading back up to the 3rd floor to do her last rounds of the day, she was called into the ICU once again, where she had to intubate an elderly patient. She had to consciously prepare herself mentally so she could dismiss all other thoughts from her mind, going through the motions of each step of intubation carefully, lift the tongue up, view the vocal cords, place the breathing tube into the cords, now into the trachea, and finally airway management. She was glad the patient was sedated so she could just focus on what she had to do. She hooked the bag up to the tube as the team watched the indicator that shows that the tube is actually reaching the lungs. The light changed to yellow. Thank goodness, Esther thought, hoping that the patient could be stabilized and then hooked up to the vent. Though she was good at it, she always disliked this part of her job because intubating seemed so invasive and patients seemed so defenseless. Esther was relieved when her shift finally ended that evening, but despite this, her nerves were on edge. She had so many questions and hoped that Pedro was not whom she feared he may be. If it is him, she thought, it makes sense why he hasn't messaged or called. She prayed it wasn't him, though. She wouldn't want to wish this illness on anyone. When she reached his room, he was asleep. She approached the bed quietly as she listened to his shallow breathing. It concerned her, and she looked at his chest moving up and down and then at his face. She stared at him for several minutes, noticing his long eyelashes, which she thought complemented his olive complexion. He has a nice face, she mused, and just then a nurse walked in and gave Esther a questioning look. Esther nervously explained that he had been her patient and that she was just checking on him, to which the nurse only responded by raising her eyebrows and then completely ignoring Esther so that she had no choice but to leave. I guess I'll talk to him tomorrow, she decided as she left the room. It had been a very stressful day, and she was left with a feeling of uneasiness and worry, so that later on that night she tossed and turned and barely slept. Even her cats had left the comfort of her bed for a spot on the sofa. When she finally fell asleep, she had unsettling dreams about her mother, her brother, and sister, and then Pedro. The next morning, making her way into the hospital a little earlier than usual, Esther made it her first priority to go and see Pedro and ask him point blank why he had called her Larissa and if she found the courage. If he was Bob she had been communicating with online. She made her way to his floor and felt anxious at the thought of the task ahead. Approaching his room, she noticed that the few nurses at the nursing station were staring at her, and she felt immediately as if something was wrong. Before she could get past them and to the door into Pedro's room, one of the nurses ran after her with something in her hand. Excuse me, she called out. Are you Esther? Esther turned around bewildered. Yes, she replied, her expression full of surprise and her voice slightly shaky. I thought so, the nurse said. Well, I just wanted to give you this. It's from a patient. She handed Esther an envelope with her name scrawled across the front and in brackets the name Larissa. Hesitating a moment, Esther took the envelope and looked up, ready to question the nurse. One of the patients who was on the floor yesterday asked for a pen and paper and an envelope to write something. He asked me to give this to you, but not before asking me to seal it first. Oh, was all Esther could say. Did you know him? The nurse asked. It took Esther a moment to answer. Yes. No, not really. He was a patient I had in the ICU. Oh, I see, she said, her expression softening. Well, he took a turn for the worse overnight and passed early this morning. She stood there anticipating a reaction. Esther was in utter shock and found herself frozen on the spot, unable to speak. Standing there, she just stared into the other woman's face. You must have made an impression on him. For him to have written something to you. The nurse offered a sympathetic smile. Yes, I guess so, Esther said, now trying not to show her confusion and her sadness. Thank you for this, she said, looking down at the envelope. She felt as if she were trembling as she started to make her way back down the corridor to the elevators. Then, suddenly, she turned around and asked what happened to him. He was doing so well and off of the oxygen. Well, his blood pressure dropped about 2 in the morning and his heart rate slowed right down until there was no pulse. They started compressions and got him reintubated but couldn't get him back. Esther listened and felt as if she had been knocked down. She didn't know how to feel. She never got the chance to find out if Pedro was Bob, sweet Bob, who loved cats and made her laugh, who made her feel hopeful that she could perhaps find love and friendship all in the same person. If he wasn't Bob, she had definitely felt a connection with him. It was all so strange and so heartbreaking at the same time. She needed to be alone to read the note he had left for her. Maybe the answer to her question was in that note. Stepping onto the elevator, Esther fought back tears. She had to get somewhere quiet. She decided to go to her car, and once there, she unleashed the tears that she had held back since she heard the news of Pedro's death. She ripped open the envelope and began to read. Hello, Esther, or should I say Larissa. I just wanted to say that I'm so glad we had a chance to get to know each other a little. Sorry about using the name Bob, but I guess you used a fake name too, didn't you? I just wanted to say that you are great and someone I would want to get to know better. I know this is a lot to ask, but since you are a cat lover like me, if anything should happen to me, would you consider taking Darth? He is really friendly and would probably get along with your 2 cats. My brother who lives with me is taking care of him now. I'm sorry to ask you this, but when I started to think I could be in here a while or worse, well, anyway, my address is below, just in case. Sorry to sound morbid, but hopefully I will get out of here soon and then we can go on a real date. Pedro.
Okay. So we're going to stop in for a moment there.
Remy called it.
Yeah.
You called it that it was Pedro?
Yeah.
You said it. You thought
Oh,
it
I
was
said
Pedro.
maybe the doctor.
Oh, the
She said
doctor.
Pedro first.
Right.
Yeah, I had a feeling. It was like,
Yeah.
well, that was my guess.
Yeah.
I didn't know for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, that's a good twist.
Yeah. Not sad.
Yeah.
It is sad.
Don't look ahead.
Oh, no, I was
Remy wants to see what happens next.
back. I was
Yeah.
thinking.
So what do you feel about like the fact that he died? Like,
Yeah, it's
you
sad.
thinking that
To meet him
Yeah.
officially before.
Yeah.
It's a cute little coincidence, though, but it sounds like.
But you know, I tried to imagine what it would feel like. Like, it's not like she was really close
Yeah,
to
it's
him,
hard because there's no.
right? Like, it was the possibility of being close, and you've lost that. It's not so much of the loss of a friend or a boyfriend, but it's the loss of the possibility
Of course, yeah, for sure.
and the unknown.
Especially if this is the first person that she's kind of opened herself up to in a very long time.
Yeah,
And she thought maybe like this could be something.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, she doesn't know what to do with this.
yes.
He's
Is
ghosted her.
this your psychology background speaking now?
No, it's probably personal.
Yeah.
Serial dating on mine. But yeah, I do feel like you get pretty hopeful when you kind of
Yeah.
are matched with someone.
The person didn't have the connection to him quite in her mind, I feel like, still. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it would be more shock. And then, yeah, sadness for her loss of the actual relationship she had with him online. But I don't,
Yeah.
like, it would probably take a minute for that connection to be made because
Yes.
she didn't know him as that person.
No.
True.
Yes.
Of it.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's sad, obviously, when we hear of a patient we used to have that.
Yeah.
passed away or whatever.
This is why I could never have your job or be a vet or be a doctor.
And that I couldn't be, which
Yeah.
is actually
Yeah.
crazy.
I would bring home
because
every animal
Yeah.
or work in a shelter.
Yeah.
I would bring home every
I
animal.
can't work with dying.
I know. It's not funny. Yeah. It's
The one thing I will say too is I'm glad this is fictitious because the like unprofessional part of like
Yeah.
how she's like checking back in and going to confront him
Yeah.
and stuff.
difference.
We all have regulatory colleges that are
so do teachers.
watching us like a hawk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But the thing is, if she was speaking to him online, I think she has a right to see if, like, he called her by her, like, Because now already the personal has crossed the professional.
I think once she made that thing, it would be different. Like, this is a friend of mine, but then also you're not supposed to check on.
Yeah.
But in the story, I do find it interesting that she had this attraction to him.
Yeah.
While at the same time not knowing that it was him.
Yeah.
So like maybe it was like a fate kind of thing.
It was a fate thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we go on to the last part of the story now? I think Shauna's going to read.
Okay.
So give me a second here.
Esther was so sad and touched that she buried her head in her hands as she leaned forward onto the steering wheel. She didn't know how long she sat there, but just as she took a deep breath and prepared to go back inside, there was a knock on her window. It was Dr. Charbot. She looked up through the window at him, and a new flood of tears escaped her. He opened her car door and bent down beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Oh, Esther, what happened?" That moment, Esther just nodded and whispered, "Do you have time to talk?" "Of course," he answered, and went around the car and got into the passenger seat next to her. He didn't say anything as he waited patiently for her to get her composure, but when she did, she began telling him the whole story of how she had met Bob, the cat guy, online, who was really Pedro, their patient, and how their budding relationship had been cut short. Esther spoke without stopping, her voice steady and calm. When finally she got to the part about the note he had written, her voice broke and she was barely able to finish. She felt a strong connection to Dr. Charbot, almost as if he were a father figure, the best father figure a young woman could want or need, especially at a moment like this one. The good doctor listened intently until she was finished and had taken a deep breath. "That is quite the story, Esther. My goodness, I am so sorry," he said, placing his hand on her forearm now and patting it like a parent trying to comfort a child. Esther thanked him for listening and apologized at the same time for having held him up. He just smiled and assured her that she didn't need to go into work and that it was okay for her to go home. "No," Esther assured him, "it is better if I work today. I'll keep my mind and my heart from feeling so sad." Before he left her, he asked, "What will you do, Esther? I mean, about his cat. Would you actually take him?" Esther didn't answer but shrugged her shoulders, not because she thought the idea was out of the question or ridiculous, but because she couldn't believe how sweet it was that Pedro would be worried about his cat at a time when he should have been worrying about himself. Esther did go back inside to do her shift. She didn't cry and she didn't neglect any of her patients. In fact, she paid special attention to them, knowing that each and every one of them had a story, people, and maybe even pets in their lives that they loved and cared about. For the rest of the week, she pondered taking Pedro's cat, Darth, and even smiled at herself when she considered getting another one to fulfill Pedro's wish of having a buddy for him named Vader, of course. She had convinced herself by justifying that, if anything, she had come into Pedro's life for at least one reason. She had come to his grand conclusion just days after he had died, but it had taken her a couple of weeks to build up the courage to go to his apartment and relieve Pedro's brother from his cat duties. Desiree had gone with her, and she was grateful that she had the moral support of her best friend. Still clutching the note in her hand with Pedro's address, she made her way up the steps to the second floor of the low-rise apartment complex. It was hidden from the street behind a courtyard of trees and a few small gardens that sat adjacent to some wooden benches. "It's so quaint," Esther thought to herself, and the peacefulness of it gave her the push she needed to face Pedro's brother and explain the request that had been made of her. She wasn't even sure that he would be there, but she went in the evening, hoping that her chances of catching him at home would be better. Knocking on the door, she felt her breathing quicken and her heart began to race. At first she heard nothing, no footsteps, no sign of life, and before she could turn away, there was someone coming down the hall in her direction. As he reached her, Esther knew immediately that it was Pedro's brother. There was no mistaking the resemblance, the friendly eyes in particular. "Hi there," he said as he reached the apartment door and Esther, who was standing in front of it. "Can I help you?" When he spoke, Esther was taken aback by his voice, which rang as familiar as his brother's. "Hi, I'm, You're Larissa," he finished her sentence, his mouth slightly open and his expression confused. Esther was herself surprised, and her eyes widened as she stared back at him, wondering what he knew about her and her online relationship with his brother. "I recognize you from your picture on the app," he began to explain. "Oh, of course," she answered. "Yes, I guess your brother must have—" She couldn't finish, because she didn't know what to say. "My brother?" he asked, confusion taking over his expression once again. "Well, he asked me to come. I mean, when he was in the hospital." His eyes, now wide with shock, interrupted her before she could go on. Just a second. Do you want to come in?" Esther smiled and nodded in agreement. He opened the door, motioning for her to go in, and following behind her, he said, "I'm Roberto, by the way, and yes, Pedro was my brother." Esther offered him her hand and attempted to introduce herself. "I'm Esther. I used the name Larissa on the app only because I didn't want anyone to know my real name, and also because I like the name. It's actually my middle name, so I wasn't really lying." Esther realized she had begun to ramble and should probably stop talking. "Oh, I see," he said, now a wry smile forming on his lips. "Please, have a seat." He motioned for her to take a seat on the plush red sofa. She took a look around the apartment as she plopped herself down, making sure to take off her jacket first. "So, you knew my brother. How do you know he was in the hospital?" he asked before settling into the chair opposite her. "I'm a respiratory therapist. He was one of my patients. I wanted to say that I'm very sorry for your loss." Roberto was nodding, and before he could ask her anything else, she blurted out, "And I guess you know we were talking before he was in the hospital, on the dating app." "You were talking to my brother?" he said, as if it were a question. "Yes, I was talking to him, to Bob. That's the name he used." "Right, Bob, yes." His expression seemed as if he were amused, and Esther got the strange feeling he was almost mocking her. "So, I came because, he actually wrote a note to me before he died." She felt awkward saying it and wished that she had asked Desiree to come up with her so that she could help Esther fill in the blanks for Pedro's brother. He was sitting there waiting for her to continue, his expression now one of curiosity. "He asked me to take his cat, Darth. I know you've been taking care of him." Roberto just stared at her, and then, as if someone had just pinched him, he sat up and cleared his throat. "Yes, I have," he answered. "And so my brother wanted you to take the cat." Interesting." Roberto shifted in his seat and then began to smile. It was a smile of familiarity, as he was picturing his brother and sharing in some inside joke. "I know this must seem weird, but I could actually show you the note. I mean, I don't have to take the cat if you don't want me to." Esther's hands began to sweat, and she wished she hadn't come. Clearly, Roberto didn't need for her to rescue Darth, and this became even more apparent when the cat appeared just then, sauntering into the living room and jumping onto Roberto's lap, purring and butting his head against his chin. Roberto scratched the cat's head and stroked him gently. Then he said, "Sure, I'd like to see this note he gave you." "Well," Esther began as she reached into her jacket pocket to retrieve the piece of paper that was now crunched up. "Actually, he didn't give it directly to me. It was left for me. He was not my patient anymore and had been moved to a different floor. When he had called me Larissa, I kind of knew it could be him. Bob, the guy I was talking to." Esther handed the note to Roberto. He opened it and began to read, that same curious, amused smile taking over his expression once again. She watched him closely, and then suddenly it dawned on her. Roberto looked up from the piece of paper at Esther. Her eyes were wide with shock and her mouth agape. "Wait," she said. "Are you?" She took a deep breath, not wanting to finish her question. "Am I?" Roberto started to say, and then waited for her to finish. When she didn't, he said, "Am I Bob? Is that what you wanted to ask?" Esther didn't respond and suddenly felt herself become parched with thirst. She continued to stare at him in bewilderment, her body now tense and her face turning beet red. "Well, Larissa, or should I say Esther," he continued, "I am Bob, only I didn't use a fake name. Bob, as you seem to have figured out, is short for Roberto. It's what most people call me, actually." Esther was nodding now, and with an almost exhausted sigh, she asked, "So Darth is yours, then?" Roberto smiled and nodded. "My brother seems to have played a very sinister joke on us." Esther nodded as well, this time in disbelief. "But how did he know?" "Oh, we've shared this condo together a while," Roberto explained. "Pedro knew all about you. He was the one to help me get the app and convince me to message you." Esther laughed nervously, remembering how Desiree had done the same for her. "I'm sorry, by the way," he said, his mood becoming somewhat melancholy. "For what?" Esther asked. "I stopped communicating. I was sick, as you know. Remember? I thought I had a cold." "Yes, I remember. Well," he continued, "I did have COVID." In fact, he stopped and looked into her eyes, his own eyes watering and his expression becoming suddenly strained. "I got COVID, and then Pedro got it. I passed it on to him, you see." Esther knew it was coming next, and she braced herself for what she knew would be a painful moment for Roberto. When he ended up in the hospital, and then, his voice choked at that moment, and Esther didn't know whether to comfort him or just listen. She opted for the latter and did just what Dr. Charbot had done for her. She waited patiently for him to continue. "It was very hard for me," he continued, fighting to hold back his tears. "I can't explain how guilty I felt, how I still feel. It was me who, if I hadn't given it to him, he may still be here now." Esther felt a wave of compassion for him at that moment. "You know," she said, "there are so many people, families, who are going through this, family members who feel the same as you. But honestly, there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. He caught it from you, you say, but maybe not. Maybe from someone in this building, in the elevator, the grocery store, at work." Roberto looked at her, but she knew he wasn't convinced. She sensed what he was thinking and decided she wasn't going to ease his pain in this way. No, she simply knew that this was something that he needed to work through and that she would be there for him, for her friend, Bob, Roberto. "I'm here, okay," she said. "If you need me, I'm here. If you want to talk, continue talking. I'm here." He looked at her then, his eyes grateful. "Thank you," he said finally, and then sighed so deeply Esther felt as if he had let go of at least some of that emotional weight and he had been carrying around for weeks. "Well, I guess I should go," she announced as she stood up and put her jacket back on. Roberto placed Darth on the floor and walked her to the door. "Thank you again, Esther," he said. "I know all this must be confusing and weird for you, but I'm glad we got to finally meet in person, even if His voice trailed off. Yes, she agreed. I'm glad too. I'm just sorry you had to be under these circumstances. She offered him one last sympathetic smile. Goodbye, Roberto, she said as she turned to go. Just as quickly as she stepped away, Roberto grabbed the bottom of her jacket and pulled her back. No, not goodbye, he said, and taking her face in his hands, he kissed her. It was a sweet, warm kiss, and she was so shocked that she stood there frozen. He looked at her and then laughed. I didn't mean to scare you, he said. Oh, do I look scared? She replied, putting both hands on her cheeks and noting how hot they were. No, I'm not scared at all. Now it was Esther's turn to take a risk, and letting go of all her inhibitions, she leaned forward and paid the kiss back. Unlike her, he responded in kind, and it was a long, exhilarating kiss of discovery and passion, of letting go and starting something new all at the same time. And amidst the awkwardness and excitement of the moment, the mix of emotions that flowed between them and the anticipation of what was to come, all Esther could think about was how much she liked the name Bob. The end. Very sweet. Very cute ending.
Yeah.
Continued setting up even after death.
Yes. Yes.
I thought maybe it wasn't going to be a joke. I thought it was just his brother got scared and he was like, this was his way of forcing her to go meet him.
Yeah.
Like his brother got like cold feet about meeting her or something. You know what I mean? But then he says he must have played a joke on us.
Yeah.
Which is fair too.
Yeah.
He played it off like that, and he actually was.
Yeah, like go meet
A little bit less. Yeah.
Yeah.
More inhibited about meeting her, but maybe he just was like, oh, it was a joke.
Yeah. Very cute.
Yeah. You know what I noticed about both of you when you were reading? You read fast.
Do we?
I was like speed reader.
I was trying to slow myself down, and I was with your teacher background saying slow down, and I was like taking pause.
I was like, holy cow, do they even breathe when they read? I was trying to slow down.
I know. Thinking I was taking all these good pauses.
Yeah, Shauna, can I just imitate Shauna? Now it was Esther's turn to take us. And letting go of inhibition, she leaned forward and put the kiss back. Unlike her, he was probably thinking this side.
That's kind of what you were saying. It's a long, short story, but it's not quite as long with us.
No, it isn't.
And that's how I read normally in my head.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, slow it down,
Yeah.
everybody. But I think I talk fast in general as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we both do.
Yeah.
Actually.
I was trying to make sure I pronounced it.
No,
But
thank you so much, by the way, for reading and for doing this. Do you think this could be a rom-com?
Yeah.
Okay, rom-com?
Yeah, they'd have to fill in, like, some whatever parts, because if you want a whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, but a lot of it would be her flashing back to her mother, especially at the beginning, to in her childhood. I would have liked to have explored more the relationship with the brother and sister. Like, I think I could have made this a whole book.
You could have, yeah, for sure.
But I didn't want to.
That's fair.
Well, you had your main thing, which was her meeting this guy, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
plot twist.
Yeah.
I read about the sisters and brothers because
Yeah.
we didn't read that part.
Because that could be a whole story on its own.
Yeah.
Because the dad left,
Yeah.
right? And she's a young girl and the mother died. Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cute.
Any other comments or questions?
it did tie in still with the dad leaving, because I feel like that's why she didn't really care about, like, she didn't think that was an important part of, like, her young life, like, getting together with someone and whatever, because I feel like she just was like, I've been fine by myself the whole time.
Yeah.
And my mom was fine by herself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It did tie in.
It did.
Dependence. We
It did.
Yes.
Yes.
therapy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. COVID was a hell of a time.
It sure was. Well, I actually wanted to do something with Dr. Charbot too. I originally, when I was writing it,
Maybe something was.
yeah. But then I was like, it's too obvious, the doctor and the,
That's what I thought.
and then,
Well, I liked that he had a family.
yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I did
And you
too.
brought in the father figure part,
Yes.
which I thought was really nice.
Yeah.
Right, because that's something that
And he's not
missing,
that much older than her, but he's,
Like,
yeah,
right? But
Yeah.
like to have someone to actually like a father sit and listen to you.
exactly, which
Speaking
is
of
what she did
importance.
not have.
Yeah, which I think was her like not attraction, I guess attraction, but in a different way to him in the
Yes.
first place.
Yes, her
Was that he
connection.
was someone that she could look connection, yeah, that's the word.
For sure.
So now she can kind of look up to.
Yeah.
That's
On the job side of it, it's nice mentioning the, like, between an RT and a doctor, how you could have had that kind of a friendly relationship too, where you're actually talking about, like, personal stuff and whatever. And it's like back in the day, it used to be more of that hierarchy kind of thing
Yes.
in the hospital, but now it's very much not like that.
Well,
And
what struck me when I asked you, because remember I had to sit with you and I had to ask you a bunch of questions about the whole role,
yeah,
and you said it was a team, a
yes,
multidisciplinary team, which I
yeah,
thought was great.
it
And
is a team.
yeah,
Yeah,
and how you all and how and how he was so attentive to the different people on the team and took in what
yes.
they were saying.
Yeah, we have some great doctors that we work with, and that's literally what I thought of is how we're like buddies with our ICU doctors and
Yeah,
stuff,
it's
and
great.
we can have more rapport that way
Yes.
because you are a little bit more on a personal level, and then
Yeah.
they trust you more, your judgment as a
Good.
professional, because they just see you as a whole person instead of just like back then. I feel like it was more just, oh, the nurses, the RTs, whoever, it's kind of like beneath us, like, and they're just the workers doing the
Yeah.
work for us. And
I think that was generally everywhere.
yeah, it was. That was a very,
It was
it built.
education, it was I think it still does exist to some degree.
It does, yeah. And some doctors are still not as whatever
Friendly or as
Yeah.
personal.
But for the most part, the culture has really
Changed,
shifted, and
Well,
everyone's
I did want to mention too that I wanted to make the story about an RT because you had mentioned when you were going in the thick of this and during COVID, you said, there's so much coverage on the news and on TV about nurses
yes,
and the struggle that these nurses are having. And you said, it's like we don't exist.
Yeah.
Nobody has even mentioned once about you guys are really frontline. You're doing the intubating, you're doing the proning. And I remember when you were getting fit for your mask and how the mask was
I had like skin
shaky.
issues.
Yeah.
I started actually having. I had never had skin issues my whole life until I had to be in my N95 for
Yeah.
4 hours at a time straight before I could get a break. It was like, and then the marks on it, but it was literally like a friction problem. Like, and then I
Wow.
started getting like acne and like,
Wow.
yeah, it was like crazy. And I remember my dad saying like, well, what are you gonna ruin your face for this, like your job? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's my job. Like, I'm also not willing to ruin my health by not wearing it. We have to wear it.
Yeah.
So, but yes, about the acknowledgement and stuff, before COVID, we used to, it's actually like a running saying with most RT departments that you don't know who we are until you need us, and then you'll never forget. Because
okay.
basically,
He was until Remy.
Yeah.
yes,
I didn't either.
you don't know who we are until you're dying or
Yeah.
you can't breathe well, and then you really know, and then you'll never ever forget us because we were the ones who were there, kind of thing.
Okay.
And like, hopefully you make it out of there or your family member makes it out of that situation. But either way, that is definitely what it was before COVID. With COVID, it was definitely the doctors and nurses were highlighted still throughout. And not every country has RTs specifically as a separate entity. They sometimes
Okay.
have specialized nurses.
Okay.
So I think internationally it's a little bit trickier, but all of North America has RTs. So after COVID, it was a little bit like, oh, wow, this is so nice. People kind of know who we are now. We were a little bit more out there. And like, I even know the show The Pit on.
Love that show.
Yeah.
I
So,
haven't watched it yet, but I do want to.
It's so
yeah. So they actually have a RT as a character.
Oh.
Like, unlike all the other medical shows, they
This
now.
is why I wrote the story, because I want to get that out there too.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's become a little bit more, but then it kind of died down again when COVID
Yeah.
died down. So it's like we're kind of back to
Back to not being noticed.
exactly. Who are you when I walk in there?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Respiratory therapist.
Yeah.
Who?
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it goes back and forth, but that's okay. Like it's on heroes.
Let's do Shauna for a second with your background, and could you because I know that they have social workers in hospitals, especially when people are dealing with loss. But like a social worker, but to me, you're more of you have more of the counseling background, right?
Yeah.
Being a psychologist, so
There's a different.
There's different legs, right?
Social work is more community outreach, that kind of stuff. Hospital, schools.
Oh,
Psychotherapy is usually more independent,
okay.
right? Yeah.
So you wouldn't ever work in a hospital.
I would need a social work degree, which I don't.
Gosh, another degree?
Yeah, right? Some
Yeah.
hospitals, I don't know. I've never seen a hospital that has. Some are, so actually, the social work college is now coming under the umbrella of psychotherapy
Really?
college. So we're going to have the same school, same college registry.
Really?
Yeah, same registry.
It's interesting.
So I don't know if that will change things.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to do social work stuff.
Yeah.
Like if I could go back, I probably would have done social work instead.
Yeah.
Just because I learn the exact same things. It's just like the label
Yeah.
Got it.
As the demographic you're
and the demographic. Yeah, when I work with kids,
Can you prescribe?
no, it's psychologist. I need a PhD.
Okay.
It's like they're basically medical doctor.
Psychiatrist.
Yeah. Oh, psychiatrist. Right.
Psychiatrist. Yeah, they diagnose and give meds.
Yeah.
I recommend people to go see psychiatrists.
On it. Okay.
But yeah, I can't
If they-
officially do anything. I can just like
Right.
comment on, maybe you should get this looked at.
Yes.
Maybe
Got
you
it.
should get tested for this.
Just
Okay.
recommendation.
Yes, but I
Got
can't
it.
formally do anything.
And even getting the info out of the patient or
And helping them find
Yeah.
ways to get. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've never done hospital stuff or anything like that.
You would be good at it.
I think you would.
My friends that are social workers
Yeah.
do the same. One friend does EMDR. She's a social worker. She does like EMDR, which is a kind of they're
Even in school.
veterans.
Yeah. My friend who did one of my podcasts with me, was a social worker. She's retired now, but like working in schools. She would, but the problem is
teacher's degree too.
no.
No.
But the problem is in education, like you have a family of schools. There are so many needs and so many kids. So you're seeing them like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
I wanted to be a
so
guidance
limited.
counselor originally.
Yeah.
But I needed a teacher degree
yeah.
and then a psych degree.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
Yeah. So I just did that.
A lot of schooling.
Yeah, too much. I'm done. But yeah,
Cool.
kids, adults,
Yeah.
older adults.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mostly
Cool.
teenagers and young adults.
Yeah, social work in the hospital is huge though.
It is huge.
Yeah. We need them.
And I only know because I watch, okay, I don't even know what the name of the show is because everybody in my family watches it and I'm like, not this show again. But the one guy is like a main character, but I don't know if he's a social worker or he's a psychiatrist. I'm not sure.
Which,
I don't
oh, okay.
remember the name.
Is it
It's a hospital show.
Oh, it's a hospital.
It's a hospital show.
Which one?
Anyway, Chicago Med maybe is the one I'm thinking.
Oh,
No.
I never watched that one.
Yeah, the guy's
Just
always
like-
like, he always knows like there's something underlying. He always can diagnose it. Like it's, it's TV, right?
Yes.
It's a pretty good show.
So yeah.
Anyway, getting back to the story, let's just end it there. And I would really like to say thank you to both of you because this is actually one of the longest episodes in all of the podcasts because usually at the novel you do like a chapter or something, but
Yeah.
Remy, you came from such a long way to do this.
Yeah.
And almost gonna deliver your baby, so you had to you actually had to get. We remember this has been over a year trying to get together
Yes.
to do this.
No.
So Remy's like finally decided to come before her baby comes.
Yeah, but we did it. Before this, it was my wedding.
Your wedding.
So
Yeah,
it's
there's
been,
so
like,
many things.
nonstop.
And she invited me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you came. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you, listeners. That concludes actually this series, the season 2. So
Hey.
not sure what I'm going to do for season 3 yet. I was going to do my other novel, but I'm not sure yet. So
Time will tell.
So stay tuned. I will be sharing soon when I decide. But anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed season 2 with all the short stories, and we will be in touch.
Bye.
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 Take care.